Woo! Good morning. It's Conservative Cat, and it's a Friday morning. And yes, I'm a little sleepy this morning because I stayed up all night watching Kamala Harris's speech. And I don't think it was worth it. But it's my job. I'm here so that way you don't have to stay up that late and watch the news and try to understand all this crazy that's happening in the country. I'm here to help you. So, in her speech last night, I guess we've got to start with Kamala Harris talking about her family. There's some key takeaways in this speech. One thing that I want to debunk right off the bat is this whole victim. She's contriving and crafting a persona and a phony identity to really advance her career. That's what this is about. So she talked about her family. She talked about how her dad left her mom, which is very common. 50% of divorce, I think 50% of marriages end in divorce. So she's not special in that sense, right? So my issue here is that she's contriving, she's crafting an identity to try to victimize herself so she can advance her career. It's sad. Anytime somebody goes through divorce, that's sad. And I feel bad for her, especially considering she was a young girl. I think she was in her 20s when she slept with the mayor, Willie Brown, 60 years old at the age of in her 20s, right? So statistically, that tends to happen when you don't grow up with a dad in the household. No, she didn't talk about that statistic last night, but she didn't grow up with a dad in the home. And, statistically, that usually leads to you sleeping with either older men or sleeping around a lot. So she didn't talk about that. She talked about how her dad, of course, left her mom. And like I said, she's crafted this persona to advance her career, her political career, and she's still doing it. And she's done it her entire political career to try to get herself up to the top. And she's portrayed herself as some sort of marginalized person. And that is just couldn't be further from the truth. The logic is something like this. If she's perceived as a victim, and if she's perceived as part of the victim class, spoiler, she's not, based on her race, few, if any, will press her on her politics. That's the goal here. She tried to victimize herself last night in her speech by talking about how she grew up in a single-parent household, which is not odd. A lot of kids grow up in single-parent households. That's not, by any means, it doesn't make you a victim, okay, or marginalized. 50% of marriages end in divorce. Now, I'm going to read some of this piece from Emma Morris. So Emma Morris is a woman. She is a journalist, and she grew up near Kamala Harris, actually right down the road, 4 houses down from Kamala Harris. But Kamala Harris has never been out here in these streets, as she claims. Okay, and Emma Morris debunks this whole Harris trying to craft some sort of persona and be a part of this victim class when she's so clearly not. Okay, so here's Emma Morris. She says, I know she's never been out here in these streets because I grew up on the exact same streets she grew up on. I actually lived up the street from where she went to school, and she lived down the street from where I went to school. During the seldom discussed childhood and adolescence she actually spent living in an upper-class enclave in Montreal, Canada. So she doesn't really discuss, and hasn't up to this point, her childhood and her adolescence. She hasn't really described it because it's so fact-checkable, right? I can fact-check her on this and report accurately where she comes from. Last night, she brought it up. That was how she opened her speech. She talked about how she is part of this victim class, how she grew up in a single-family household, single-parent household, and how she, experienced marginalization and oppression and things like that. So this woman, she obviously grew up right down the street from her, on the same streets as Kamala Harris did, and she is saying that's a straight out, it's just so preposterous. It's just so not true that she is a victim or she grew up oppressed. Okay, so she grew up upper class in Montreal, Canada. When Harris was 12, she left Berkeley after her mother got hired to work with McGill University doing breast cancer research at Montreal's Jewish General Hospital. Okay, so her mom had a very nice job. She was a cancer researcher. The hospital I was born in this hospital, says Emma Morris. Now, I'm reading her excerpt because this is so important. This woman, having lived next to her, down the street from Harris, understands how Harris actually grew up. Her mother is described by doctors as a pioneer. The neighborhood Harris grew up in is called Westmount, majority English neighborhood in a French province of Quebec. Okay, so she would have definitely experienced segregation living there, but not the kind she claimed in the last few years to have to live through, right? So she's experiencing segregation, but it's not the segregation she's talking about and pushing out there. And she's trying to say that there was racial segregation where she grew up and she had to grow up, oppressed or marginalized because there was segregation. That's not true. There's no racial hostility in Montreal. Emma Morris goes on. She says some racial political discourse has been imported from America in more recent years since the George Floyd riots, but that would really not be a part of the cultural awareness or experience of someone who stopped living there before 2020. So in recent years, after the George Floyd riots, there's been some sentiments of political, racial discourse that's imported itself into Canada. Outside of that, there is no racial hostility in Montreal. There's just none. So Canada does have a history of tension with the natives. However, this story is not about Elizabeth Warren, so I won't go there. This is what Emma Morris is talking about in her piece. They do have a history with tension with natives. Montreal is actually a melting pot, though. So even if Kamala Harris is, not black like she claims, and she's, Indian, like in Elizabeth Warren, who claims that she's Indian, Montreal is a melting pot. It's outside of that. It's outside of Canada's traditional history with tension with the native people. Okay, so Montreal is its own melting pot in terms of racial and ethnic diversity. This is so important, and I know I'm spending some time on this, but it's so important that you know that that's a lie. It's a preposterous lie that she is a victim and that she grew up middle class. She did not grow up middle class. She grew up upper class, and she grew up in the wealthiest, richest suburb in Montreal, Canada. Okay, so I'll go on here. She said, Montreal is actually a melting pot in terms of racial and ethnic diversity and has always had a unique ability to accept immigrants of all backgrounds, races, and religions while maintaining its French culture. So there's a big, big French culture. Due to a series of language and culture laws it began implementing in the 1970s until today. So they've been able to salvage, despite this melting pot, their French culture. Okay, so in a story about Kamala Harris's roots and personal experience, the only segregation she would have experienced is economic segregation, as Montreal is the most economically segregated city in Canada. Now, that's according to a study in the University of Toronto. Okay, so in that city, Kamala Harris grew up in the most upscale. So it's unlike any other place in Canada. This is a very wealthy place. It's the most upscale neighborhood, which at the time she lived there was not only the nicest neighborhood in Montreal, but it was one of the richest ones. Now, today, it's not the richest one, but at the time when she lived there, it was the richest neighborhood in all of Canada. Okay, that's not growing up middle class, folks. According to an op-ed penned by her best friend from her time at Westmont High School, Harris lived with her mother and her sister, Maya, on Grosvenor Avenue in a Victorian home. As her friend explains it, okay, this is an op-ed from her friend, Harris's friend. Harris enjoyed family dinners and a stable life. Okay, so I would imagine that Kamala Harris's friend would know, a friend who grew up with her at her time at Westmont High School, would know if she grew up middle class or if she had, struggles. No, she says that she had a stable life and had family dinners, right? This is not middle class. She grew up upper class. In that neighborhood, you can see it's a beautiful, safe, quiet, child-friendly community with parks, a red brick library. Does this sound like middle class to you? A red brick library with a greenhouse attached to it. There's an indoor skating rink just across the street from where she went to high school, synagogues, churches. You take a walk around the community, which requires some level of fitness because it spans on the side of a mountain. You'll see kids of all races and ethnicities in their uniforms, suits, and ties, walking their dogs after school, playing local sports teams, pairs of moms jogging together, nannies pushing children in carriages. Okay. So this does not, I don't know about you, but is this your experience? Because I grew up in central Illinois and, we have a downtown area where most of the businesses are closed up. We have houses that are falling apart. We've got chain link fences that are bent because of the wind, right? So I don't know about you, but this doesn't really sound like my experience as a middle class person. I grew up maybe like lower middle class, and I live in Lincoln. I mean, there's factories that are boarded up. There's abandoned businesses. There's chain link fences. There's window units, AC window units. People don't have central air in my neighborhood, right? That's just the way this neighborhood is. She didn't grow up that way. Okay, despite the lie she'll tell you in her speech. This is one of the luckiest places someone could live. Harris implying that those are the streets. It's just preposterous. It's stupid. It's a joke for many people who grew up there. Emma Morris, I'm telling you her story, watching her as someone who grew up the same way, in the same place, with the same culture. I'm stunned at the person she portrays herself to be. Now, I do want to play this clip. This is an important clip. This is an important clip. Let's take a listen. Here's Kamala Harris saying she's out here in these streets.
And you all helped us win in 2020, and we're going to do it again in 2024.
This is not code switching, okay? This is not code switching. This is lying. This is deceit. She's trying to create and craft some sort of persona, and it's this shameless fabrication of facts that bothers me so bad. Harris and the Democrats, they constantly accuse Donald Trump of doing this, where he lies, he's deceitful. This is lying. This is deceitful. Where she gets out there and she says she's from the middle class and she had to struggle and she's a victim, she's oppressed, right? And she had a rough home life. That's couldn't be further from the truth. And then she gets out there and she pretends to be black. 2024. Like, that's not code switching. It would be code switching if she spoke in French and said "de me contre" or something like that, right? If she were to say that, then that would be code switching because she grew up with French culture, right? So watching Harris, this is what Emma Morris says, her neighbor, right? She says, watching Harris is someone who grew up the same way, same place, with the same culture. I am stunned at her saying she comes from a place of marginalization, oppression, strife, even remotely. It can't be overstated how preposterous that claim is. It's actually laughable, it's actually ridiculous, and it's completely made up. So that's just the beginning of Kamala Harris's speech. I'll pull the transcripts and I'm going to play a little bit of her speech on the other side of this break. But She opened her speech talking about how she grew up middle class. I hope that segment helped you when people say, oh, I'm voting for Kamala Harris because she's like me, or she's for the middle class. I like Tim Walz. He's for the middle class. What teacher, by the way, Tim Walz isn't middle class either. I don't care if his net worth is like zero when you look it up. He is not, there's no way he is middle class because he's taken, over the course of a few years, 30 trips to China. 30 trips. That's weird. One, what school teacher takes that many trips out of the country? Two, what teacher takes that many trips out of the country to the same country? Three, this guy got married in China, by the way, and honeymooned in China, and wanted his wedding date. He got married. He wanted his wedding anniversary to be on the date the Tiananmen Square massacre happened, because he wanted to remember his wedding anniversary date. This is all fact check. Fact check me, please. He's not middle class. There's no school teacher out there who's visited a country 30 different times, let alone China 30 different times. This guy is, I think that's the most bizarre thing in the world. And it makes me begin to ask myself, is this guy a foreign agent? Is he a spy? I mean, at that point, 30 times, that's a lot. I mean, he's considered a regular. Okay. He's a regular to China. He's probably got like he goes there and he sits down at a diner and he's got a drink named after him or something. All right, I've got to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to continue with Kamala Harris's speech from last night. I also will talk about Adam Kinzinger. He says that Republicans are the party that they're no longer conservative, and then he does all kinds of personal attacks against Donald Trump. He calls him a small man. Adam, aren't you like 5'7", dude? I'll be right back. Woohoo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Hey, I so do appreciate you tuning in. I hope that segment was helpful. Look, folks, Kamala Harris, she is not middle class. She, said this quote last night in her speech. She said, Donald Trump does not fight for the middle class. Folks, Donald Trump took a bullet for the middle class. Okay. She did not grow up poor. She went to a high school in one of the most at the time, the richest suburb in all of Canada. Okay. This was a library. It was a beautiful brick library with a greenhouse attached to it. I don't know about you, but do you have that in your community? And it spans this little community. It spans on the side of a mountain where you can find synagogues, churches, an indoor skating ring. This is a child-friendly community, and kids in uniforms. Private schools of all ethnicities. They walk their dogs after school. Nannies are out there pushing toddlers in carriages, and her mom was a cancer researcher. Okay, so I don't know if a lot of single moms out there can say that they had that type of job, right? And I'm not disparaging her or the way she grew up. That's awesome. I'm glad that she grew up, not having to struggle. But this whole contrived and crafted persona and this phony identity is really a slap in the face as an American, and she's just doing it to advance her career. So they accused Donald Trump of being in it for himself. Guy got shot. Okay, he's clearly not in it for himself. He would have bowed out a long time ago and, retired on the golf course. This guy is not in it for himself. You want to know who's in it for herself? This woman. She's lying about her identity to advance her career and try to dupe you and fool you. So, like I said, watching this, her lie, it's stunning, really. She's not marginalized. She's not oppressed. She would never grew up poor. And here's some key takeaways. I want to play this clip for you. Some takeaways from the speech last night. I think Kamala Harris and the deep state, they know they've lost already to Donald Trump. And now they're starting to lay the groundwork for a non-peaceful transfer of power. I'd imagine at this point they're trying to get Kamala Harris out there. They know what's going to wind up happening in 2024 in regards to the riots if Donald Trump wins, when Donald Trump wins, and they want to get ahead of the carnage, right? And they want to make sure that Kamala Harris is out there on tape saying these things. Here we go.
Half of the people, on behalf of every American, regardless of party, race, gender, or the language your grandmother speaks, on behalf of my mother and everyone who has ever set out on their own unlikely journey, on behalf of Americans like the people I grew up with, people who work hard, chase their dreams, and look out for one another, on behalf of everyone whose story could only be written in the greatest nation on earth, I accept your nomination to be President of the United States of America.
Okay, I got to point this out. She did not grow up in this nation, by the way. She grew up in Canada, but okay. All right, thunderous
And with this
applause.
election,
The seals, there they are clapping. The seals, the sheeple.
and with this election, our nation,
Here's the important
our
part. Take a listen.
nation with this election has a precious, fleeting opportunity to move past the bitterness, cynicism, and divisive battles of the past, a chance to chart a new way forward.
A new way forward? Why a new way forward? You're the guy. You're the guy 10 steps away from the Oval right now. We wouldn't need a new way forward if you just made this path a good path. Okay, you could make changes right now as the sitting vice president. We need a new way forward. What do you mean? You're in office right now. Start doing it then. And then she talks about the divisiveness. Okay, then maybe you shouldn't have lied in your speech, saying things that have been debunked several times, debunked by CNN themselves, debunked by Snopes. She pushed out that lie about Project 25. 2025, Donald Trump, he has said several times that he doesn't know where that came from and he has nothing to do with it. Then she pushed out the lie that he was going to implement a national abortion ban. Trump is actually very moderate on abortion. He believes in 3 exceptions. And he said that he's going to leave it up to the states as the Supreme Court ruled. Divisiveness, cynicism. Maybe you shouldn't lie about your political opponent. Maybe in your speech, you would address the fact that your political opponent, your opponent, was shot at and almost killed just about a month ago. So let's take a listen again. Yeah, you might actually talk about that.
Not
about how
as
that's
members
unacceptable.
of any one party or faction, but as Americans. And let me say, I know there are people of various political views watching tonight, and I want you to know, I promise to be a president for all Americans. You can always trust me to put country. Be
very, very mindful and careful of those. Tim Walz and Kamala Harris said it in their speech. Trust me. You can trust me. These people are evil. They don't want you to go out and find out for yourself information. These people are evil, so evil. I mean, it's one thing to lie. It's one thing to push out false claims. Like the Project 2025 stuff and the national abortion ban. It's another thing to say, hey, I'm going to lie, but really, I want you to trust me. Don't look up this information for yourself. Just trust me on it. That's very creepy.
Above party and self, to hold sacred America's fundamental principles, from the rule of law to free and fair elections, to the peaceful transfer of power.
Okay, right there. They put that in that speech because they know what's going to happen. Notice the rhetoric from the DNC. Last night was the last night. She spoke. The rhetoric, I mean, almost every speaker repeated the lines, when we fight, we win. I thought fight, fight, fight was, turning up the rhetoric, and you can't say that. You can't say fight, fight, fight. Almost every single speaker at the DNC said, when we fight, we win. They used that rhetoric. And then notice how she talks about free and fair elections. And she makes this remark here about the peaceful transfer of power. Donald Trump did not not want to give up power. He did peacefully step away from the office, even though they definitely stole that election. He stepped away and gave up power peacefully and then decided to run again. So they're laying the groundwork here. And then she constantly, and other speakers said, we're not going back. There were chants on the floor that said, we're not going back. We're not going back. Back to a wonderful economy, back to a secure border. Exactly. These people have no intention of going back. And I'll tell you this, she has no intention of giving up power peacefully. The establishment, the deep state, now she's just a useful idiot like Joe Biden was. They have no intention of giving up power peacefully. The 2020 BLM riots, January 6th, this is going to look like a picnic in comparison to what's going to happen after that election is called. I'm predicting the election will not be called until a month out. There's going to be all kinds of weird antics that happen, and there's going to be riots once Donald Trump wins officially, because they're not going to be they can't even steal the election anymore, because people just won't they won't believe it. They won't believe that Kamala Harris actually won. There's no way that they're going to actually believe it. That's why they're not dedicating time to the campaign. That's why she's not dedicating time to talk about her policies or do one-on-one interviews, because they're already 4 steps ahead. They're laying the groundwork now, you see, to not give up power peacefully. All right, I do have to take a quick break. We're going to come back. Adam Kinzinger also spoke last night. What else? Oh, I've got to tell you about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He's planning on endorsing, I believe there's some, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s campaign, the people working on it, they're not the brightest. I hate to say that, but it's true, because there's been a lot of missteps in this campaign. So I'm going to talk about whether or not he's going to endorse Donald Trump. I think that he will. He's supposed to speak, I think, at a Trump rally on today, Friday. So I'll be right back. It's Conservative Cat Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Woo! Hey, good morning. It's a Friday morning. You guys can always find me on Rumble. Just type it in your search bar, Cities 92.9. You can also find me on YouTube. Type it in your search bar, Conservative Cat Show. You can text me as well. Let us know how we can improve the show. That's 309-451-9299. Before we took the break, I was telling you a little bit about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He is supposed to be endorsing Donald Trump. So that's what has been going on now. I've done a segment in the past about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. There was a video that came out. It was I think it was his son who actually videotaped RFK on the phone with Donald Trump talking about something. And that got leaked, and the mainstream, they of course used it to make Trump look like he was completely crazy. They took the phone call out of context. They were talking about vaccinations, and they tried to make that phone call appear as if Trump has lost his mind and he's a crazy person for talking about vaccinations and how there are side effects to vaccinating children specifically. So a source close to RFK's campaign says he has not yet decided on dropping out and endorsing Donald Trump. There's an internal war happening within the camp, with Nicole urging him to join forces with Trump and Cheryl Hines urging him to drop off the ballot in swing states and not endorse. Okay, so at this point, we don't know if RFK is officially going to endorse. I think, if I had to guess, his running mate came out and said that that is something that they're looking at. That would be amazing. I mean, if that happens, they have lost. Kamala Harris has completely lost the election, because RFK Jr. takes away votes from Donald Trump. That's just the facts. Okay, there's people out there who are so fed up with the deep state. They would prefer an RFK Jr. Because Donald Trump was in there for 4 years and didn't drain the swamp like he said he was going to, and listened to Tony Fauci and some of these experts. At that time, I don't think that there was anything else Donald Trump could do. He didn't think that that the deep state was actually that bad to where they were going to, at the expense of the American people, unleash a virus, a COVID-19 virus, and fund it behind his back, this Wuhan China virus. And then he didn't think that they were going to lock things up out of trying to steal the 2020 election so they could get the mail-in ballots. It was all planned, orchestrated, COVID-19, in order to steal that 2020 election away from Donald Trump. I don't think Trump or anybody could have foresaw that happening at the time. He was getting bad information from these bureaucrats, and he did allow for lockdowns. And there's people out there who are pretty far right and so anti-government that they think that Donald Trump isn't going to drain the swamp, and they believe RFK Jr. would do a better job at that. Now, what you don't know about RFK Jr., what's not talked about, is that he is like open border, or he's weak on the border. He's also weak on abortion. I think he's as radical as 9 months. He's like one of these like libertarian type guys that like really doesn't want to get in the way of anything. And that just is a recipe for disaster. You have to have laws in this country. The Constitution affords us the ability to have sovereignty, so our own country and our own governing body. Okay, so we need to have laws. We need a moral people. But RFK Jr., outside of those two major policies, I think he's a pretty decent candidate. And I think that he takes votes away from Donald Trump. And if he endorses Donald Trump, then we might actually have a major shot at winning, because that will take away any kind of momentum that the Democrats got during the convention this week. Everybody's going to be talking about RFK endorsing Donald Trump. And could you imagine, I really want RFK to be put in charge of the COVID, the COVID policy and the trying to hold those actors accountable, like Tony Fauci. I would love to see that, or I would love to see him put in charge of intelligence. So he has to work with the CIA. So I'd imagine on day one, he walks in and he's like, "So you guys killed my brother." I would imagine that would not go over well with the CIA. So yeah, there's a lot of Democrats, and the whole reason why he's talking about endorsing Trump now is because the Democrats are just so awful to him. They have tried, they've funded entire organizations, the Democrats, to try to get him off the ballot in swing states. They've tried to get him just to not even be able to be on the ballot, RFK Jr. So, and the Democrats have a complete disdain for him, which I don't understand why, because if anything, he's only taking, he's be benefiting the Democrats because he takes away votes from Donald Trump, I think, over Democrats. I'll be right back. It's Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. So news might drop today. He might appear at the Donald Trump rally. Trump had said that he has a special guest at his rally. So that's next on Conservative Cat. We're going to talk about RFK, but we're also going to talk about Adam Kinzinger at the DNC. We'll be right back. Hey, good morning. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. You can go ahead, smash that like button if you're watching. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Adam Kinzinger, as we know, has a military background, and at the DNC yesterday, he called January 6th a siege. Look, folks, at January 6th, they wore funny hats and they got a tour from the Capitol Police. The Capitol Police let them inside the building. So I don't know what Adam's talking about when he's calling this a siege. There was one Trump supporter who died that day, a Trump supporter who was... I mean, it was a executionary type shot. I mean, just a point blank shot to the face, or I think it was to the head. Hold on, I want to know where Ashley Babbitt got shot exactly. I don't want to tell you the wrong. I think she got shot in the head. See, and it's going to be, she was fatally shot. I'm pretty sure she was shot in the head. It really doesn't matter. She was fatally shot, and it was an executionary type shot. She was literally crawling through a window, or so it was inside the Capitol building, and they had busted out the windows, and she had crawled through like this door, and it was inside the Capitol. So she wasn't like climbing the walls of the Capitol or anything like that. She was inside the Capitol, and there were a lot of other people going through that door as well, that was busted out already, really, because that was the only way out of that little hallway there. So she climbs through, and then they pop her. I think it was to the head. It was a fatal shot to the head, but I'll figure that out here in just a couple of minutes. Either way, it doesn't matter. She was fatally shot, right? So there was only one Trump supporter who was shot that day, and Adam, he withheld J6 footage, and he's responsible for American citizens being jailed for not even trespassing. People who didn't even go into the Capitol, like Ashley Babbitt did, they've been jailed for years. And he's responsible for withholding J6 footage that would have exonerated them, right? So Adam Kinzinger, he was there at the DNC. He talks about how Democrats also love the country like Republicans, and I just don't understand how he could say something like that, because the Democrats, he's allegedly got this Christian background. Now, he's from around the Normal, Illinois area, and allegedly he has this Christian background. You got to give me a break. You're championing people who are for abortion up to 9 months. After Tim Walz made it to where, young children can come across state lines, or come from other states to get their abortion, and he signed into law you can get an abortion, late term abortion in the state of Minnesota. Late term abortions, now that's 26 weeks and after, up to 9 months. They are doubled. They doubled under Tim Walz's executive order regarding abortion. So I'm back now. Woo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. I so do appreciate you tuning in each and every day, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Now, I want to get to little Adam Kinzinger. He's like 5'7". I think he's like 5'7". He's a little man. He calls Donald Trump a small man, but let's take a listen to this clip from the DNC last night. Here we go.
The Republican Party is no longer conservative. It has switched its allegiance from the principles that gave it purpose to a man whose only purpose is himself. Donald Trump is a weak man pretending to be strong.
Okay, so Adam Kinzinger, he says that the Republican Party is no longer conservative, and then he unleashes all of these personal attacks against Donald Trump. Trump truly broke this man. There's a few things that Adam said that really bothered me. You know, considering he has a military background, he said that January 6th, he called January 6th a siege. You know, they wore funny hats. The J6ers, they wore funny hats, and they got tours from the Capitol Police to go inside the building. Adam Kinzinger withheld January 6 footage that would have exonerated American citizens being jailed. They didn't even trespass. And he withheld crucial footage as a J6 committee member. And he hid evidence. Everything about Kinzinger's speech was a lie, just like all the other speeches at the DNC. I'm going to be back discussing this further in detail. Be sure to find me on YouTube, Conservative Cat Show. You can also find me on Rumble. Type it in your search bar, Cities 92.9. When we come back, talking more about Adam Kinzinger and how he's a soy boy, but also Al Sharpton mispronounced Kamala's name during the DNC speech. I thought that was racist. Apparently not for Al Sharpton to do it, but
on-site help staff until the fire department arrived to take over medical. Again, the incident is under investigation. The girl died at a local hospital. With Illinois already home to the second worst unemployment rate in the nation, Republican State Representative Dan Ugaste is warning the worst may still be yet to come. Overall, researchers pegged the state's unemployment rate at 5.2%, nearly a full point above the national average of 4.3%, prompting Republican State Representative Dan Ugaste to argue the state has become its own worst enemy when it comes to such matters. For 25 years, we've been poorly governed. We have put too much burden on business, make it too costly to do business here. We have the highest business taxes of anywhere in the nation. We are overregulated. During the month of July, the state added just 37,300 jobs compared to the year before, with government jobs accounting for the highest growth rates at 6.2%. Illinois also ranked last in job growth among neighboring states at 0.61%. News on the air, on the web, on Draft on Alexa. I'm Tom Davis. Here's the Bloomington Normal forecast on Cities 92.9. Sunny and warmer today with a high near 83. Partly cloudy tonight, low 65. Partly sunny for Saturday with a high of 87. Chance of thunderstorms late Saturday night at 68. Thunderstorms start Sunday, then mostly sunny with a high of 88. This weather report is submitted by DH Pace Garage Doors, residential and commercial garage doors and entry doors since 1926. Schedule service at dhpaceGarageDoors.com. From the Johns in Lexington studio, don't let your insurance company void your car's warranty by using junkyard or imitated.
Woo! Welcome to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. I so do appreciate you being here this morning, 6 to 8 a.m. We got to talk more about little Adam Kinzinger because he is such a little soy boy. I think Trump actually broke this man. Adam Kinzinger, he of course says that the Republican Party is no longer conservative before unleashing all kinds of personal attacks against Donald Trump. Let's take a listen to it. Here we go.
He is a small man pretending to be big. He's a faithless man pretending to be righteous. He's a perpetrator who can't stop playing the victim. He puts on, he puts on quite a show, but there is no real strength there. Tarnished by a man too fragile, too vain, and too weak to accept defeat. How can a party claim to be patriotic if it idolizes a man who tried to overthrow a free and fair election? How can a party claim to stand for liberty if it sees a fight for freedom in Ukraine, an attack pitting tyranny against democracy, a challenge to everything our nation claims to be? And it retreats, it equivocates, it nominates a man who is weirdly obsessed with Putin.
Oh boy, I'm sorry that I had to share that with you this morning, but that's Adam Kinzinger. And of course, you know, what really bothers me is that he's allegedly got this Christian background. You all know that he's from these parts where he was, you know, from Normal, I guess, went to Normal West or somewhere around Central Illinois. And he's, you know, one of us, right? You know, for being a Christian, you're getting up there and you're championing people and you're endorsing people who are pro-abortion for up to 9 months, because that's their point of view. Okay, Tim Walz, under his leadership, late-term abortions after 26 weeks. That's what I mean by late-term abortion. Late-term abortion doubled under his executive order, where, you know, a woman can get an abortion for any reason up to any month, right? And late-term abortions have doubled under Tim Walz. Okay, that ticket, you're endorsing a ticket like that. I thought you were some sort of Christian, okay? And I thought he had some sort of military background. He called January 6th a siege. Come on, folks. This was a bunch of people in funny hats, and then the Capitol Police let people in. Okay, this was not a siege. He withheld J6 footage So therefore, he's responsible for American citizens being jailed for not even trespassing. They didn't even go into the Capitol. There was one Trump supporter who died that day. It was Ashley Babbitt, and there was an executionary shot, fatal shot, where she was crawling through a window, right? And it wasn't even a window. She wasn't crawling the walls of the Capitol. It was like a busted out door that she was crawling through. She was not threatening anybody. She was unarmed. And the Capitol Police executed her. Okay, so Jamie Raskin, Adam Kinzinger, the rest of the J6 committee, they deleted and hid evidence proving Trump's innocence. They lied to the American people about hiding evidence. And they lied to the American people about this clip. Here we go. I'm going to play this for you. Do you guys remember this?
I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard today.
That's it. I mean, that they hid that. They hid other evidence, J6 footage. Everything in the Kinzinger speech was a lie, as the other speeches at the DNC were. They really, the lies that bothered me the most, probably that the border was way more secure under Joe Biden, which, what? 3 million crossings under Donald Trump, 10 million under Joe Biden. Those are the numbers, okay? Project 2025 was another lie that they pushed out there. That's not true. He's said multiple times, Donald Trump has said multiple times, I've got nothing to do with that. They said that he's for a national abortion ban. He's one of the most moderate presidential candidates in history. I would say most moderate on that issue. He believes in the 3 exceptions. What else? So-called Republican Adam Kinzinger endorsed Kamala Harris. He says, I'm a conservative and veteran. I believe truth's strength lies in defending the vulnerable. Adam, this is ridiculous. Come on, man. Planned Parenthood was there at the DNC offering abortions all week. True strength lies in defending the vulnerable? You got to be kidding me. You were there at the DNC. You were a part of the club, right? And you're talking about protecting and defending the vulnerable? Come on. Planned Parenthood was killing babies all week at the DNC in a van, in a bus. Okay. I want to play this clip. This is a good one. Caitlin Collins and Adam Kinzinger. Here's their exchange on the floor of the DNC convention, or the Democrat National Convention. Here.
Donald Trump had said he's going to be watching and live reacting to tonight's convention. I mean, he'll be listening to your speech. What would you say to him?
Well, what I'm going to say to him, which is he's totally unqualified. This guy is a small man pretending to be big.
Donald Trump had...
Okay, people are probably wondering why Adam is the way he is. A lot of people don't know this. He actually tried to work under the Trump administration when Trump was in office, and he was denied. He was denied. So he's obviously got some revenge going on. Just keep crying, soy boy. Keep crying. A quote from Adam Kinzinger in his speech last night: the Republican Party is no longer conservative. It has switched its allegiance from principles that that gave it purpose to a man whose only purpose is himself. Donald Trump took a bullet for democracy. Okay, in his speech, it was riddled with democracy this, democracy that, democracy. Donald Trump took a bullet in it for himself. Are you kidding me? In it for himself. He took a bullet for the middle class. He took a bullet for democracy. Oh, but he's in it for himself. Whereas you have Kamala Harris lying, and it's so easily fact checkable. Just look up where she grew up. It's Montreal, this wealthy suburb. Westmount High School is where she attended. Her mother was a cancer researcher. She did not have to grow up struggling or in stripes. She wasn't oppressed. She wasn't marginalized. This is one of the most melting pot communities in Canada. There were kids of all ethnicities that went to high school with her. There was a library. It was a beautiful brick library with a greenhouse attached to it where she grew up. Come on, folks. Let's get real here. So race baiter Al Sharpton, I want to play this clip too. because this is a good one. Al Sharpton was there. You guys remember Nancy Mace? She accidentally mispronounced Kamala Harris's name, and these people get so wrapped up in the mispronunciations of people's names, and I don't know why that is. It's very weird, where they like, if you mispronounce my name, because these people, and what I think it is that they think that everybody deserves respect right off the bat, right? You meet a person, and automatically you need to like have this level of respect for them, which is true. Human respect, right? And decency. Like, yes, I'm going to respect you as a human. I'm not going to, spit in your face or treat you poorly the moment I meet you, but I'm not going to give you the respect that I would my father, for instance, or the respect I would for my boss at work that I've known for years, right? Respect is earned. Respect is earned, okay? And she hasn't earned enough respect because people know Donald Trump's name. They don't mispronounce his name. Why? Because he's earned respect, okay? People know his name. You don't have to fake popularity with him. You don't have to fake respect. People know his name. They know how to say it. He's earned respect. Now, Adam Kinzinger, who we were just talking about, by the way, I've heard it's pronounced several different ways. Kinzinger, Kissinger. People have a hard time, news outlets, with his last name. Why? Because Vivek Ramaswamy, everybody pronounces his name right, from what I've understood, even though it's a tough one, okay, because he's made a name for himself and he's earned the respect of people. Adam is not a respectful person. Okay, he hasn't earned my respect enough to. I know his name and can pronounce it, but he hasn't earned enough respect for us to everybody to pronounce his name correctly. Kamala Harris, same thing. Race baiter Al Sharpton, he is the one who got out there and he mispronounced her name. Nancy Mace did this, and you remember CNN, of course, they jumped on her and called her a racist because she mispronounced her name accidentally. Here we go. Here's Al.
Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris. So he gets to mispronounce her name. These people are not serious people, okay? This guy called Nancy Mace a racist for doing the exact same thing last week. He called her Kamala Harris at the DNC during his speech. Democrats are a bunch of hypocrites. Now, real quick, I do want to get to this because there was one truthful thing that Adam Kinzinger said at the DNC. I want to share this with you. Here we go. Let's take a listen.
Because the fact is, I do belong here. Because the fact is, I do belong here.
That is the one truthful thing. He does belong there, okay? Because you are not a respectable person, and yeah, you do belong there, Adam. You do. All right. I do want to play this for you on the stream. Now, this is just video, but I'm going to describe for you what's going on here. And this is really important for you to watch it later today if you haven't watched it yet. It's going around and it's taking social media by storm. So on the third day of the Democrat National Convention, when Tim Walz spoke, I think there was 4 days overall, when Tim Walz spoke, now he talked about how he's a coach and yada yada. He doesn't mention how he shut the team down, the football team, for years during COVID-19. He doesn't talk about. He says, "Oh, we're neighbors and we got to look out for each other." You set up a snitch line, dude, for COVID-19 for people to call and snitch on their neighbors if they were, having turkey with grandma during Thanksgiving. He canceled Thanksgiving. This guy is a radical. This is a really interesting clip, and I'm just going to play it for the people on the stream. You guys can go watch it later. Just type it in your search bar, Tim Walz yanking. You could probably, Tim Walz yanking, right? His special needs son around in front of millions of people watching. This is very disturbing. All this good dad nonsense is really troublesome because he's not a good dad. You can see in the video here, he yanks his special needs son. All right, I got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. We'll be right back. Woo! Good morning. Hey, it's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. I so do appreciate you tuning in each and every morning, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. We've got so much to get to. And yes, as I said, Tim Walz, this is very disturbing. This good dad nonsense, not true. If you watch the video, it's quite disturbing. He yanks his special needs son around in front of millions to watch. It's very disturbing. And as you know, he got up there and he lied during his speech. He said that his wife underwent IVF treatment. That's not true. Fact check, his own wife said that that wasn't true. They went through fertility treatments, but not IVF specifically. So this hour, I want to talk about Donald Trump visiting the border. He was asked about RFK Jr. possibly endorsing him. He said he didn't know anything about that, but he would take the endorsement and he'd be honored to take the endorsement. That might happen today. If that's the case, I mean, the Democrats are toast. They are not going to win because any kind of momentum that they got from the Democrat National Convention is going to be gone once RFK announces his endorsement of Donald Trump. Now, there's some weird things, funky things in the RFK campaign. Few months ago, or like about a month ago, RFK Jr., his son videotaped a phone call with RFK Jr. and Donald Trump. This was a phone call that was taken out of context, of course, by the mainstream to make Donald Trump look crazy as he was talking about vaccinations and the side effects that some vaccinations have. And they tried to use that against Donald Trump, and the son, I guess, leaked it. And RFK Jr. said, I didn't want that leaked. And he called Donald Trump and apologized over it. So there's a lot of things going on in the RFK Jr. campaign. I think that people are trying to, there's like infighting going on where RFK Jr., he's got some folks who want him to drop out and endorse Donald Trump, and then other folks who want him to just drop out of the swing states. But look, RFK Jr. is not going to win. Third-party candidates never win. They just take away votes from one party. And that would be, I think, Donald Trump. People would vote for RFK over Donald Trump. And if RFK Jr. were to come out and endorse Trump, those people would then go vote for Donald Trump, likely. I think that he takes more votes away from Donald Trump than Kamala Harris. Next, I do want to talk about CNN. They've grown so desperate that they're fact checking an obvious joke of JD Vance's. So we've got to talk about CNN because this is quite hilarious that they're that desperate and they hate JD Vance that much. JD Vance, he blasts how thousands of children under Kamala Harris's rule as a VP and as a border czar have been lost at the border. Sex trafficking, human trafficking. This is all happening under Kamala Harris's watch. So border czar Kamala Harris has spent her entire political career trying to make sure that no human being is seen as illegal while Americans suffer. It's unclear how many victims of violent crime there has to be until this woman gets a grip. But we can pretty much bet that that isn't going to happen anytime soon. She's not going to get a grip and close down that border in her position in her official capacity as border czar and vice president and de facto probably president because we know Joe Biden isn't running anything, right? So Trump blasted Kamala Harris's radical illegal immigration extremism, which is why she refuses to run on record. Okay, she has this extremist ideology and she's not running on record. And that was very clear by her speech last night because she really just talked about herself. If anybody's in this race for themselves, it would be Kamala Harris because she just talked about her life and how she grew up. She lied about it. And I fact checked her in the 6 o'clock hour, how she grew up in one of the richest when at the time, wealthiest suburbs in Montreal. Her mother was a breast cancer researcher, made very good money. She had a stable family, as her friend had said in an op-ed and wrote. She, wrote in an op-ed, her friend, Kamala Harris's friend that she went to high school with at Westmount High School, she said that Kamala had a very stable life. Okay, she's not middle class. You're middle class. Okay, you drive down the street and you see businesses boarded up, small businesses boarded up. You see chain link fences bent from the wind and from tornadoes. You've got, maybe the roof that definitely needs some work. That's middle class. Okay, what she grew up with was not middle class. It's called upper class. Okay, she grew up upper class, which I'm not disparaging her for. I am disparaging the fact that she tries to put herself in some sort of victim category or class just to advance her political career. That really peeves me off. Here's Donald Trump at the border yesterday talking about her record. We know she won't run on it because it's so extreme. Here we go. Let's take a listen.
As the DA of San Francisco, Kamala Harris was the godmother of deadly sanctuary city. She was considered the godmother. All they're doing is protecting criminals, which set loose illegal alien criminals rather than hand them over to ICE, who are doing an incredible job. Under a program Kamala set up, an illegal alien arrested on drug charges in 2008 was set free to enjoy job training. A short time later, that same illegal alien attacked a 29-year-old beautiful young woman, Amanda Kiefer, stealing her purse and fracturing Amanda's skull. It was vicious and horrible, and Amanda's here with us, and I'd love to have.
Okay, so he was at the border. He spoke with victims of illegal immigration. You know, people always say, "Oh, how does their movement to this country hurt you, Katrina? How does it hurt you?" Well, let me tell you how illegal immigration hurts people. That instance right there, we've got the DA of San Francisco at the time, Kamala Harris, the godmother of deadly sanctuary cities. She is the one behind all sanctuary cities, really. She was one of the first. She set loose illegal alien criminals. They're illegal, okay? The fact that they're breaking the laws initially to come over the border, that means they're criminals. That's how they hurt me, okay? Your rights end where mine begin. Okay, you don't get to infringe on my rights. Okay, that's the same with the unborn, with abortion, right? Your rights end where mine begin. I have the right to life. Okay. Now, these people, they infringe on your rights, your right to have a country, your right to have a territory. This is what the founding fathers laid out in the U.S. Constitution. You, as a U.S. citizen, have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You also have the right to sovereignty, to be able to govern yourselves. You can't do that when your border is open. You have the right to territory. And to be sovereign than that of away from other countries. Okay, you have that right as an American. Kamala Harris spits on this right when she creates sanctuary cities. They're unconstitutional. They shouldn't be a thing. So she lets these illegal alien criminals, because they cross the border and automatically they're criminals once they cross that border, and she lets them loose. Then rather than hand them over to ICE. Under a program Kamala set up, an illegal alien arrested on drug charges in 2008 was set free. So this was under her program, her Sanctuary City program. He was set free to enjoy job training. A short time later, that same illegal alien attacked a 29-year-old girl, stole her purse, and fractured Amanda's skull. How many more Americans have to have their skull fractured by illegal criminals before Democrats stop defending criminals? Okay, how many more victims have there got to be of illegal immigration for Democrats to stop defending this crap? Unfortunately, some people were not able to recover from their crimes, like Amanda was, a 12-year-old girl, and Donald Trump talks about this here. He talks about, her name's Jocelyn. Let's take a listen to it.
This is Alexis Nungari and Hoamel Guevara, the loving mother and uncle of precious Angel Jocelyn Nungari. Jocelyn was a 12-year-old girl from Houston whose life was stolen by two criminal illegals that Harris freed into our country for no reason whatsoever. They were known as monsters. 2 months ago, after walking to the convenience store, these criminal migrants kidnapped Jocelyn, tied her up for 2 hours, violently assaulted her, and strangled her violently to death. Charged with Jocelyn's wicked murder are 2 illegal aliens from Venezuela who came across our border.
All right, so there you have it. I do have to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Be sure to find me on Rumble and YouTube. Type it in your search bar, Cities 92.9 on Rumble, and then Conservative Cat Show on YouTube, and subscribe today. I'll be back. Woo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Yes, find me on YouTube and Rumble. Before we took the break, I was telling you a little bit about the border. Trump was at the border. He visited the border, talked with victims of crime. Look, crimes committed against 12-year-olds, okay? Some of these victims, they weren't able to recover to talk to Trump that day. I talked about Jocelyn. She wasn't there that day because she was murdered by 2 illegals. The fact that Kamala Harris wants to pretend she's tough on border and border crime while being in charge of that is telling. Okay, she's not tough on border crime because we still have victims like Jocelyn out there. We still have 12-year-old girls dead, especially because they have the nerve to blame this on Trump, who is not the border czar. Okay, they say that the border's bad. They're willing to admit that now. Some of them aren't willing to admit it. I think it was the UAW president who said that the border problem was manufactured by conservative media, which is just not true, right? 10 million crossings, by the way, under the Biden-Harris administration, 3 million under the Trump administration when he was in office. Not only has the White House been flying migrants all over the country, but they also give them free smartphones. Okay, they give them free smartphones. They give them health care. I want to play this clip for you. This is Trump down at the border. Before becoming VP, Kamala Harris claimed that she wanted to abolish ICE, by the way, and give illegals free health care. And now she's stepping away from what she has said with her mouth and from her positions on policy because she knows it won't advance her political career. So now she's like hiding who she actually is. And this is what she said. After that, she became the border czar and oversaw the worst immigration crisis in America, in American history, after she admitted with her mouth that she wanted to give illegals free health care. Here we go. Let's take a listen. Here's Donald Trump at the border yesterday.
A new all-time record of illegal immigration has been set. Every single year, our great border czar, she'll blow away Biden's reputation as being the worst president. She'll be a president that'll make him look good, just like Biden made Jimmy Carter look good. To get illegals into America as fast as possible, Harris has flown hundreds of thousands by airplane. Then they say, oh, well, we didn't want them to go. But then we found out a few months ago that they're flying him in over the border by airplanes to all over our country. Well, that means they do want them to come in and flying in some very dangerous people. It's close to 1 million people, we think. Close to 1 million people were flown in over the border, and she's trying to say, well, we're in favor of borders. She just started this a short while ago. She's even launched a smartphone program that gives fast pass entry to thousands of illegal immigrants, all coming very quickly. You use the smart pass and you get immediate access into our country. Can you believe this?
So there's Donald Trump. The reason she's not running on the record, and everybody was talking at the DNC for the past 4 days about joy, hope, vibes, right? They're trying to run a campaign on joy, hope, and vibes. I'm sorry, but that's not going to work. The American people want to know where you stand on policy. Give me something about yourself. Tell me how you're going to run the country. And she can't run on the record because it proves that Kamala Harris will be the worst American or the worst president in American history. She's going to be worse than Joe Biden. Just like Joe Biden made Jimmy Carter look good, Kamala Harris is going to make Joe Biden look good. I want to shift gears here. Let's talk about the concept of fact-checking because it's complete baloney. Because in the olden days, it wasn't called fact-checking. It was just called reporting. Okay, this is what it was called. Now corporate journalismers and these, leftist propagandists, these government propagandists, as I like to call them, they nitpick over rhetoric and they use whatever the most recent email they got from the Democrat strategist as their source. They use the Democrat press release, the White House press release, to claim something is false. Okay, they use the official voice, the White House press release, as their source to fact check people like JD Vance over silly things. Quite literally, they got so desperate that they are fact checking a joke that JD Vance made. Now, my favorite all-time fact check, so-called fact check, was on Paul Ryan's speech in 2012 at the RNC convention. He had a throwaway line about how he had a lot of songs on his iPod from A to Z, and he said AC/DC to Zeppelin, and he got fact checked on that because the band is actually called Led Zeppelin. Okay, so it was a throwaway line. It was just like something silly, and they fact checked him on that. The journalismers, the corporate journalismers. So here I have Exhibit Z, CNN. They're fact checking JD Vance over this joke that he made, and I talked about this joke yesterday, where he said, "I have a little theory about Tim Walz and why the Democrats chose to have the convention in Chicago. It's because Tim Walz has been going around saying that he's been to war." Now that he's been to Chicago, he can actually say and accurately say he's visited a combat zone. So now you've got CNN fact checking this. It's quite incredible. I'm not sure if you're aware, but besides having overrated pizza, Chicago is most known for the violence there. Okay, I think I gave you the number. It's 1,800 people shot. 1,800 people shot just at the beginning of this year. So January to August, over 1,800 people have been shot. JD Vance, he wasn't being literal, okay? It was a zinger. Obviously, he was being snarky. He was taking a dig at Walz's stolen valor because he's gone around and said that he's gone to a combat zone. Not true. Carried weapons of war. Not true. In combat. That anybody with half a brain would think that Vance was calling Chicago a literal war zone. Now it is. I wouldn't say literal war zone because we're not at war, but it is like, 1,800 people shot. That's crazy. He was making a profound political statement saying that Chicago is very, very violent and that they've got a violence problem there, but also taking a dig at Tim Walz's stolen valor. So unfortunately, you don't need half a brain to work at CNN because they fact-checked JD Vance on this. And let me check my notes here. They say that Chicago was chosen a year before Walz joined the ticket, so that's why Tim Walz's little theory about Democrats choosing to host their convention in Chicago so that Walz could actually accurately say he went to a combat zone is false, because Democrats selected the Chicago venue in April of 2023, long before Biden even considered dropping out. This is total crap. Okay. I mean, they didn't even go with the whole like crime being down thing because Democrats do that. They try to say that crime is down and they massage the statistics because cities don't report crime like they used to. And the Safety Act, not to mention no cash bail. They don't even keep the criminals there anymore, and they don't even report the crime accurately anymore. But typically they go that route to try to fact check Republicans when they say that major cities have a crime problem. They try to say, oh, actually, crime is down in the last 3 weeks. It's down from 1,800 people to 1,700 people, right? Although it's at like a historic high. JD Vance was obviously telling a joke. So JD Vance's joke is false because actually, the Democrats chose the Chicago venue last year. JD Vance, you're lying. He was telling a joke. You people are psycho. They're so desperate. All right, I got to take a quick break. You're not going to hear corporate journalism crap here on Conservative Cat. We're going to have some fun. Next, I've got another story for you about 32,000 kids. Now a report has come out that 32,000 kids have been lost after ICE admitted that they were unable to account for them. And now this is under Kamala Harris, the Harris-Biden administration, right? This is under her administration, 32,000 kids lost, and ICE admits that. I'm back next on Conservative Cat.
outside to help staff until the fire department arrived to take over medical. Again, the incident is under investigation. The girl died at a local hospital. With Illinois already home to the second worst unemployment rate in the nation, Republican State Representative Dan Ugaste is warning the worst may still be yet to come. Overall, researchers peg the state's unemployment rate at 2%, nearly a full point above the national average of 4.3%, prompting Republican State Representative Dan Ugaste to argue the state has become its own worst enemy when it comes to such matters.
For 25 years, we've been poorly governed. We have put too much burden on business, making it more costly to do business here. We have the highest business taxes of anywhere in the nation. We are overregulated.
During the month of July, the state added just 37,300 jobs compared to the year before, with government jobs accounting for the highest growth rates at 6.2%. Illinois also ranked last in job growth among neighboring states at 0.61%. News on the air and the web on Rapid on Alexa. I'm Tom Davis.
Here's the Bloomington normal forecast on Cities 92.9.
Sunny and warmer today with a high near 83. Partly cloudy tonight, low 65. Partly sunny for Saturday with a high of 87. Chance of thunderstorms late Saturday night at 68. Thunderstorms start Sunday, then mostly sunny with a high of 88. Weather is brought to you by Dr. Justin Miller of True Health Chiropractic and Massage on East Washington Street. If you're in pain, contact True Health today.
This hour of Conservative Chat is brought to you by Annie's Eats. Be sure to follow Annie's Eats on Facebook for daily specials on their award-winning barbecue. See their full menu at annie'seatsblono.com.
Fighting Illini football as they kick off the 100th anniversary season in Memorial Stadium on Thursday, August 29th at 8 p.m. versus Eastern Illinois. Start your Labor Day weekend early with the whole family. Enjoy the family fun zone in Crane Grove, plus fireworks in the stadium. Great seats available for as low as $15 for the Illinois football home opener, Thursday, August 29th. Kinzinger at fightingillini.com.
Kick off the fall season with WC Market's two-day fall open house this Friday and Saturday. WC Market is located in downtown Fairbury inside Fairbury Furniture. Enjoy new, seasonal, and everyday home decor, seasonal stems and florals, candles, inspirational gifts, books, baby gifts, and more. We hope our unique and beautiful displays inspire you to make your house a home. Follow along on their Facebook and Instagram pages for more details and photos. We're looking forward to seeing you all. You know the best time to get new windshield wipers?
Before it rains.
Best time to replace those brakes that haven't been braking so well?
Before you have to stop really fast.
Anytime you have a problem with your car is the best time to meet the guys at Palmer Tire. From tires to those pesky red warning lights to most anything under your hood, Brian and Jeff at Palmer Tire can make it all good. Palmer Tire and Auto in the Big Blue Building on East Empire Street.
Cities 92.9 Sports.
Cubs opened up a can on the Tigers yesterday at Wrigley, winning 10-2. Miguel Amaya nailed a grand slam to pace the Cubs. In St. Louis, the Cardinals got 6 shutout innings from Miles Michaelis. The bullpen did a good job cleaning up, too. It was a 3-0 win over Milwaukee. Bears finished the preseason a perfect 4-0 after beating the Kansas City Chiefs 34-21 at Arrowhead. Tonight, the Cardinals travel to Minnesota. The Cubs are in Milwaukee, while the Sox host the Tigers. I'm Chris Murphy, Cities 92.9 Sports.
Woo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat. Be sure to find me on YouTube, Conservative Cat Show. Subscribe to the channel and follow me on Rumble. Yes, before we took the break, I was telling you 32,000 children have been lost after ICE. They actually admitted this. ICE admitted that they couldn't account for the kids. Now, I don't believe Kamala Harris has even pretended to care about this. This is why JD Vance is calling her out for her policies that have actually resulted in the loss of thousands of innocent children to sex trafficking, drug trafficking, and human trafficking. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
And that I just heard from a sheriff earlier today that they caught 2 kids who were being basically kidnapped by the Mexican drug cartels to help those drug cartels facilitate the sale of illegal drugs into our communities. What happened to those kids? Where are those kids' parents? I guarantee our government doesn't know, because our government, under the policies of Kamala Harris, has lost thousands of innocent children to sex trafficking, to drug trafficking, to human trafficking. The party that believes in separating parents from their children is Kamala Harris, because that's what the open border has done.
Yep. So this is supposed to, Kamala is supposed to be a candidate who pretends to not want children to be separated from their parents, but she's doing just that. So according to ABC, the Department of Homeland Security's internal watchdog says it has uncovered an urgent issue with how immigration officials handle cases involving unaccompanied migrant children, warning in a new report that the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency has been unable to keep track of all of the unaccompanied minors released from government custody. So they can't keep track of what kind of or how many kids and where they go once they're in government custody. Okay, they're supposed to go to, either a sponsor of some kind or a shelter, and you're supposed to keep track of them. The Department of Health and Human Services is responsible to care for unaccompanied migrant children. So after they are initially taken into custody by U.S. authorities, ICE's role is to ensure their timely and safe transfer to the HHS. So the HHS is the one losing them. Okay, this is a big, big deal. So while Kamala Harris has vowed to give, migrants a pathway to citizenship, she has no true plans on how to address the 10 million illegals that have already committed a crime by crossing the border. Now, Kamala Harris last night said, I'm going to give them a pathway to citizenship. What about the criminals who have crossed over the border? What about the thousands of children you're losing after the HHS obtains them? Anyone who promises that no human should be illegal under their watch is promoting some of the most evil policies, whether they know it or not. You need to have a border. You can't have open borders. It's just not the way this works. The U.S. Constitution says that we have the ability to remain sovereign, a sovereign nation, and you can't have open borders. All right. You guys have a blessed weekend. Bye-bye. I love you. Be sure to find me on YouTube. We're going to drop another YouTube video later today. So subscribe to the channel so you get more content. And I hope you have a blessed weekend and a safe weekend. I'll talk to you on Monday, 6 a.m.